Subaru WRX is extremely popular among younger drivers, and it makes sense why. This car is quick, it handles like a real sports car, it's offered with a manual transmission, it's all-wheel drive, it's roomy, practical, and conspicuous enough to convince your wife that it's the perfect family sedan. And today, I'm going to drive this brand new 2020 WRX. I'll show you around the interior, the exterior, and the power plant, and we'll find out if it really does bridge the gap between sports car and family sedan. It feels pretty sporty in here, but it's kind of odd because of how high up I'm sitting. The interior looks pretty well made for the most part, especially the steering wheel. It's got nice red stitching on it that accents the instruments. There's a little bit of plastic here and there. It doesn't look quite as well put together as your average German car, but probably better than a standard GM or Toyota. The instruments, they look semi-aggressive, and the speedometer goes up to 180, which gives you the impression that you're in a pretty fast car. The pedals are nice too. They're aluminum plated, and there's a decent amount of weight to them. There's also a fun little MFD that you can play around with. It shows you useless information like your lateral G's and an inclinometer. I imagine most people keep it on the boost gauge most of the time. That's probably what I'm going to do. I kind of wish there was an old analog boost gauge right in the middle, but I guess they don't really do that anymore. So there's a decent amount of stuff for the driver to play around with in here. The passenger side's pretty well equipped as well. They get a few cup holders, they get their own climate control, access to the volume, and a nice seat that hugs them around the corners, just like this one. The WRX has always followed the same formula. A turbocharged rally car that's all-wheel drive and beautifully balanced. But it seems to me that the WRX gets progressively uglier and uglier as the generations pass. And this thing's no exception. I mean, this thing went from one of the best looking cars of all time, the Impreza 22B, to this. I mean, it's not horrible, it's modern, but not really in a good way. It's rounded off, it's shaped like an egg. It looks like a Honda Civic with a hood scoop and faired out fenders. And I know it sounds like I hate the way this thing looks, but that's not really true because it's a blessing in disguise. I say this because your loved ones, they don't want you driving around a turbocharged rally car that's built for corners and can go 155 miles an hour. They want you driving around something boring and sensible like a Honda Civic or Toyota Prius even. And to them, that's exactly what this car looks like. But you know it's not.
One of the defining features of the WRX and all Subarus alike is this Boxer engine. All of the new WRX models are fitted with this same engine. It's a 2-liter turbocharged direct injection motor. It has 4 valves per cylinder, dual overhead cams, and variable valve timing. It produces about 270 horsepower and 260 foot-pounds of torque. And squeezing 270 horsepower out of a 2-liter engine is pretty impressive. But that power does come at a price. These engines are not really known for their efficiency. It gets a combined total fuel economy of 23 miles per gallon, and if you drive it like a Subaru owner, it's realistically going to be in the high teens. With a 16-gallon fuel tank, you're looking at about 320 miles between fill-ups, and it does require high-octane fuel. So why do people love the Boxer engine so much? Well, that mostly stems from the configuration of the cylinders. The cylinders are horizontally opposed. It's called a flat 4. This allows for better cooling and for the engine to be placed way down towards the ground, giving the car a lower center of gravity. And a lower CG means better lateral acceleration and immense benefits to handling characteristics. There are of course some drawbacks to the flat 4 configuration, like increased maintenance cost and the possibility of premature wear on the lower part of the pistons. But overall, the Boxer engine is very proven, and I for one am a big fan. And now it's time to take the WRX out on the road and see if it drives as good as so many people say.
Driving the WRX on some nice back roads. This is what this thing's made for. So they say. Oh wow. Right away you can feel that power coming up. There's a decent amount of turbo lag. Didn't really kick in until 3,500 RPM. Coming up on a bend here, let's see how this thing turns. Let's see how it corners. Oh wow. The steering's really precise. You move it a centimeter and it's going to dart in that direction. Coming to a stop here, let's see how this thing accelerates off the line. Being all-wheel drive, I imagine it's pretty good. Not bad. 276 horsepower. Not a whole lot of torque considering how heavy it is, but it's definitely got a lot of power. It gets up to speed pretty quick. I think around 4,500 RPM, we lost a little bit of boost. I don't know if it over boosted and it automatically spools down the turbocharger, but we definitely lost a little bit of power at that time. It handles really well, just like a new car. Even better than a normal new car. I mean, this thing's all-wheel drive. It really makes you feel confident going around corners faster than you actually should. Going back the other way. The steering's medium heavy. It's not too heavy, not too light. I'm gonna go ahead and switch driving modes here. I'm gonna take the traction control off and put it in track mode and see how that changes things. So track mode is on. Not really feeling a whole lot of differences right off the bat. The steering maybe, yeah, feels a little bit tighter, a little bit heavier. Same amount of throttle response, same amount of boost. It's definitely a pleasure to drive. I mean, driving this thing every day, it would be fun commuting. If you have a nice road to commute on, which most people don't. Coming up on a stop sign, I'm going to accelerate off the line and see how it does it in track mode. Yep, that's pretty quick. When this turbo spools up, it's just kind of an explosion of power without even putting the accelerator down anymore. It's kind of annoying, honestly. But when you want it to happen, it's very satisfying. The shifter feels really nice. It's really tall. I don't really like how high up it is. The clutch is, I said it was heavy earlier, but now that I'm actually driving it, for being a performance car, it's actually pretty light. I wish it was a little bit heavier. But that's why people modify these cars. They're so easy to modify, and you change just a couple things and then boom, you have a race car. I like the boost gauge. It's fun. It doesn't just show you the boost, it shows you the peak boost that you've achieved, I guess, since you started the car. It shows you your percentage of throttle input. I'm going to take it up here to a little bit more bumpy roads and see how it soaks up the bumps. This thing is so nimble. It's crazy to think that I'm in just a big sedan that weighs almost 3,500 pounds. I love how this thing downshifts. It's very, very easy to rev match. You lift the throttle up, pull the clutch out, and it's right there where you need it. A nice little section here. So it's quick on these flat roads, flat curvy roads. It's got really good handling. Let's see how it handles the hills. Pulling up hills, I imagine it's not going to be that great because it doesn't have a whole lot of torque and it weighs quite a bit. But let's find out. Yeah, once you get the turbo spooled up, it pulls pretty hard going up these hills. At least that slight hill. So let's see how the torque feels going up this steep hill here. And coming out of gear, it's got the hill assist. That's nice. Turbo lag, and comes the turbos. It's not too bad. Not very torquey, but it feels good once the turbos spool up. Brakes are nice and tight. It just has the stock brakes, not the STI Brembos, but they get the job done. The biggest thing I'm impressed with is the handling on this. It does have a decent amount of power too, 270 something horsepower, and it gets up to speed pretty quick. But remember, this is a stock car. This is bone stock, and it's just the base model WRX. And for a base model, this is damn impressive.
Driving the 2020 WRX was pretty much how I expected it to be. And that's quite a praise because I had high expectations. It has a decent amount of power with explosive turbo lag. The exhaust is relatively quiet, but loud enough to be exciting when you put your foot down, with fun turbo wastegate noise when you pull your foot back. It's extremely well balanced and handles like a sports sedan should. It's also very practical with 5 seats and plenty of room in the cabin and the trunk. This car is also very safe. It has a 5-star crash test rating. So if you're a family person but a race car driver at heart, I think the WRX should be on the top of your list.